Our large clients are spending about $500,000 a month for advertising across channels. I know how to integrate systems and processes effectively with already thriving businesses to make them even better and more valuable to their clients.
Robert Brill, the CEO of Brill Media, a media buying agency that focuses on precision advertising for business growth.
The company has been honored 10 times across Inc. 5000 and Financial Times 500.
These are elements, these are instruments of the orchestra that work together to build the symphony. And the symphony is the sales, the orchestra are the channels, the tactics, the creative, the optimizations we make. One person, I remember, said something to the effect of, well, we all have to start out somewhere. How do you give someone a chance? And the answer is...
The Content Capitalist Podcast.
Hey guys, welcome to the Content Capitalist Podcast, where we discuss all things marketing, content creation, media, and our guest today, he owns a digital media agency or digital marketing agency. He's been at this for longer than I think most people who are in this space. His name is Robert Brill, and we're going to explore everything about what is working today, and we're going to focus especially on things that you can use in your business to get more leads, more sales, and generally just grow your business to where you want it to go. Robert Brill, welcome to the pod.
Thanks for having me, Ken. Really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. Robert, could you, on top of what I just said there, add context to let the audience know what's your business? Who do you help? Is there a certain niche? And typically, what do you help them accomplish? What are typical results looking like?
So we age in dog years in the advertising business. I've worked in the business for 20 years. It's my professional passion. For the last 10 years, I've been bootstrapping and scaling Brill Media. And our job, when you think about advertising in particular, there's two main types of work. There's a creative component where you create taglines like "Just Do It," and you produce commercials and you make ads that you see in all kinds of different environments. You create radio jingles, etc. So we don't do that. We do the data and algorithms component of that business. Our job is to use existing advertising platforms and use them to generate leads and sales for clients. And our clients are typically going to be agencies. So they will white label us and we'll go to market together. They'll do creative and we'll do the media buying. And we work directly with businesses.
Okay. You know, when you describe that, it's not too different from what I do in my agency, which is similar, but instead of for media buying, we do content creation, which is creating all sorts of media for people to run as ads, ad marketing, organic marketing, nurture campaigns, and that whole deal. So that's interesting. Do you do any like direct to the client or only white label? So
some of our clients are actually just straight up businesses. We don't typically go after them just because I found that we're more well suited to be part of a larger team, but we certainly have direct to business clients. But either way, I mean, at the end of the day, we're doing, for our clients, for the advertisers that we're working with, we're running B2B and B2C campaigns. So all the major search and social platforms, Meta, TikTok, Google, Hulu, digital out of home, Pandora, Spotify, digital audio. So everything we do starts with a strategy. And I think that's one of the big misses that a lot of companies don't do. There's no strategy behind how they're investing their money.
Now, you mentioned something earlier. You've been doing this for 20 years professionally.
Yeah.
And a lot has changed, like crazy amounts have changed. And I think that just by thinking back 20 years ago, we're in 2004, right? And the kind of marketing that happened then was, if I remember correctly, it was mostly email marketing, and ads were more like these banners that went on blogs, and in the search engines, it was banners and towers. Is that the kind of stuff you're doing, or was it something else?
My very first, what I consider part of my career, I was working at Universal Music. It was called guerrilla marketing. It was not advertising. Our job was to go into forums and talk about the artists that were putting out new records. So Canadian artist named Fifi Dobson. Yeah, blogs and forums. And we created like usernames and developed cachet within the forum. So we're doing like Hoobastank, The Killers, Method Man. and it was collectively called guerrilla marketing. Today it would be called social marketing or social media marketing, or influencer marketing in some ways. And then I moved over to Universal McCann, and worked on Sony movies. And we were buying banners. I mean, that was a big part of what we were buying. But the most notable campaigns, and one we actually won an award for, was a movie called When a Stranger Calls. And the marketing there was really interesting because we created a chatbot on AOL Instant Messenger. So going back in time. So it was AOL Instant Messenger. We created a MySpace page for the main character. Her name was Jill. And the MySpace page had all the flashing colors and stuff of the time that was apparent that a young person might have on their MySpace. And there's even an 800 number you could call to, like, it would be like you're on the phone with your friend Jill and she's getting a call from inside the house. That was the whole plot of the movie. And it was really scary for her because she's babysitting in the middle of the woods. And we served over 1 billion impressions on properties to promote.
Were there
this
even
movie.
1 billion people online back then?
Well, it was 1 billion impressions.
That's amazing.
Not 1 billion. Definitely not 1 billion people. And a lot of them were in the form of promotional ads on AOL Instant Messenger to get people to interact with the bot, which was really exciting. And yeah, the movie opened up #1, and it was sort of like a template that Sony and Universal McCann used for future movies. We were doing podcast campaigns, like for a movie called Little Man, I think it was called, with the Wayans brothers. We brought in a podcaster to integrate the Little Man concept into this podcast. Anyway, so marketing has always been, and I think will always be, about finding unique and novel ways to resonate with audiences. And so I like to think of that as marketing, but advertising in particular, you really have to be spending money in order to buy space to deliver messaging. A lot of people confuse marketing and advertising and promotion, all these different things. But really, at the end of the day, what's boring actually works really well. The fundamentals work really well. And so a lot of what we do in our business and what drives scale is the ability to execute effectively on the fundamentals.
As unromantic as this may sound, I think the truth is it all comes down to really good math. If you get the math right, meaning you just test a bunch of stuff till you know what's going to get people's attention, and then every single step of the way, what's that conversion percentage to the next stage, the next one more second watching, one more paragraph being read, one more button being clicked, and mathematically you can solve that, which I think is what. And yeah, you're right, creative. That's left and right brain right there. You need them both at a high level.
Okay, so I was going to say, someone said this, and I really like it. We say creative is king, media is queen. So if you have the right messages and it resonates with people, you can go a long way. And then you need media and distribution to ensure enough people see it to make a difference and keep your accounting team busy.
I'm curious about the different stages or phases, or should we say generations of marketing that you've seen and shifts along the way, all the way back from early 2000s to today. Could you kind of walk us through that history? Because I was aware of that space, but never really got involved in it until I started my current agency, which is from 2017. So, like, for my sake and for the audience, it might be interesting to get that kind of that evolving, process from somebody who's on the inside.
Yeah. So there's a really great research company called eMarketer, and they would talk about the different periods of time with regards to web media consumption, the rise of mobile. The way I like to kind of think about the different epochs of time is the rise of MySpace, the fall of MySpace, and the rise of Facebook. So there were basically twice a year, a client would ask me, okay, tell me about MySpace versus Facebook. And at some point, there was an inflection point, and Facebook was the place, and MySpace was obviously declining. So you have the rise of Facebook, which brought with it the rise of social media and the rise of social media marketing firms and the rise of free floating organic content that a lot of businesses put a ton of time and effort into. And that was brilliant because it got businesses involved in marketing that seemed free, it seemed liberal, it seemed open, and it was a great 10 to 15 year hook to keep people engaged with Facebook in particular, and to get them hooked on this idea of free and accessible distribution. So that's one thing. More on the back end technical side, there was this development of programmatic advertising, or the use of data targeting and automation. That started around 2008, and there's a big divide in the advertising business: pre-programmatic and post-programmatic. Programmatic was such a controversial term because it was such a massive disruption to the advertising business. And what it essentially meant in practice was, like when I started working at Universal McCann and some of these other agencies that I work for, I'll take you through how it transacted. So we'd go out to dinner, we'd go to Wolfgang Puck with the New York Times, and then with Yahoo like a week and a half later, or in one winter time around the holidays. I'm pretty sure we went to Ruth's Chris Steakhouse like 6 times in the course of 6 weeks. It was glorious. So I didn't get paid a lot, but I got paid in really good food. And so you'd have these conversations, you'd build relationships. The seller would be just all giddy to like get to know who you are, and etc., which had absolutely nothing to do with the fact that you had $1 million to spend on advertising. And a week and a half later, we'd have a sales conversation, and I'd say, cool, I'd be, if I'm the media planner, I'm the arbiter of where the dollars go. That's my job. And so I'd sign a contract for like $250,000 to buy ads on New York Times or Cosmo or ESPN or whatever the case is. Send over a fax, do all that, and then you send over the ads run, and you're done. You get reporting like a few weeks later. With automation, it displaced or disintermediated a lot of salespeople. So a lot of salespeople now work in real estate when they used to work in advertising, because now I could go to a place like Facebook. There were other tools at the time, but the framework is like Facebook. It was basically like you log in, you say, I want to buy ads on sports websites, and I want to use consumer data to target men, and I want to reach them wherever I see them. And I'm going to pay between $1 and $3 to serve an ad. And I only want to serve the ad between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. or whatever the hours are, and all kinds of different parameters. I don't need a salesperson to transact on that anymore. I can just do it myself. And so there was a time prior to this automation and this time post to this automation. So now the vast majority of advertising is done with this automated buying capability, with data tracked with your mobile device and all these kind of like different mechanisms. And that shift, I spent like 5 years of my career just explaining to people what's going on with that shift, which is amazing. As far as individuals, it was a really good time to work in advertising because there was such dramatic shift that me and people like me were put in rooms with people 20, 30 years our seniors, because we were the only ones who knew about the intricacies of digital advertising. So at 29 years old, I was a director of digital advertising for an agency, overseeing tens of millions of dollars of ad spend, but I didn't know how to talk in a meeting. So I had to learn how to talk in a meeting. I went to Toastmasters and that. So if you're talking about, timing was really important. And I don't think you could do that as effectively or as quickly if you're just starting in the advertising business now. Then you have, like there's these other things happening, hyper local advertising, the ability to dial into where people are and serve them ads based on their like which store they went into. That's really exciting. But the big epochs were pre and post Facebook, the rise of mobile, the rise of programmatic, and I'm sure other stuff since then that didn't seem as dramatic for me, but like I'm sure AI, the introduction pre and post AI is another big epoch that
we're just at the beginning of that cusp,
100%,
like barely touching it. I believe it's going to get to the point where the images and the video and the scripts and the voices will be generated per the person who clicks on it. You know, like I'm not kidding. It will happen. Absolutely will happen. You click on it, it's going to be like, hey, are you a bearded man sitting in front of a bookshelf and you're thinking about a change in your life? Consider. You know what I mean? We're going to get to the, of course, I'm saying that in a joking way, but it's going to happen in a way that you don't realize. Like, or even if you do realize, it's not going to be on the nose. That like the psychology that they're going to be able to embed in the AI generators is going to be done in such a way to lower your resistance by making it feel so human, so natural. But it's going to be uncannily customized to the viewer, and I believe it'll be just generated in real time based on who's clicking and when they're clicking, why they're clicking. I 100% believe that's going to happen.
I love that. I would invest in that company.
It's not if, it's when. And unfortunately, for a lot of people, I believe it's going to emerge from China because they have way fewer restrictions on things like privacy protection. And they got a zillion, man team of, of coders who will, they're kind of like a nothing to lose type of culture right now, when it comes to, trying to beat America in the tech race. But who knows? America might get there first, but like AI is still definitely predominantly American. So we'll see. We'll see how that evolves. But we'll talk about dreaming about the future in a sec. But I have so many concepts of where I can see this going. Like what you just described there, the programmatic advertising, people would have such a hard time imagining how you can serve an ad just to a certain location, to a certain gender, to a certain age group. Like that was inconceivable until Mark Zuckerberg pulled it off, right? And in the same way, if what I'm saying sounds inconceivable, it's just because we haven't seen it happen yet.
Yeah, I mean, the technology, like I'd say like 2/3 of that dynamic video content delivery already exists. You have the mechanism, right, there's tools, Avocado, Jibox, Flash Talking, and a few others, where you can program data to deliver a static image plus some text.
I remember the moment where that idea about the future came into my mind is I have a friend of mine, he's developing, and it's actually already launched. It's a sales call AI. And this AI on the phone was doing a better job than 90% of salespeople I've ever had a conversation with. The only problem was there's a slight delay, and that's what kind of gave it away. But there are even things like when I'm talking for a bit of time, I hear like he's like, yeah, like he's giving these nods of approval, and he understood. I say it's like I'm treating it like a person. It understood exactly how to keep me and it invented the script based on what I was saying for how to bring me back to the point of sale. And when I just realized, wait, these scripts and the voice is being generated real time as I'm speaking. This gives me enough, of a vision of what's happening right now to see how difficult would it be to stick a face on it? Not too hard. How difficult would it be to make that a woman? Not hard at all. How difficult would it be to, make it a video with some titles on the screen? Again, not difficult based on what we're already seeing, like for example, with Sora on OpenAI.
So I was at a conference 2 months ago, and someone demoed exactly what you described, an AI sales call. And in the AI sales call, the AI originally talked to the wrong person, so you got the decision maker on the phone. It was like a 9-minute conversation. It was all about, have you thought about selling your business? I had a video go viral on TikTok about, with that demo, and it caught a lot of slack. It became very controversial. Where AI is going to take our jobs, and who's going to have money because no one's going to be able to work, all that stuff. So it was a nice little viral hit for my TikTok channel.
Yeah, it's funny, as marketers, when the word controversial comes up, that's when we yes. But then most people run from controversy. They're scared of it. But for us, we just know, hey, this is free exposure. We're extending our reach. We hit the the power up in the Mario game or whatever. It's just a multiplier on your efforts, isn't it?
100%. And in our business, we have to be very trust is a big part of the equation for us, because a lot of people can be marketing and advertising agencies. All you need is a computer, an internet connection, and a Facebook account. You can sell Facebook ads. So we'd really dial into trust and transparency. And I think we could stand our business, our brand could stand to be a little more funny and a little bit more controversial. But I just rely, at the end of the day, the business is an expression of its founder. And, what I say and what I do on TikTok and other channels is a reflection of who I am and how I see the world. And I try not to be controversial, because I'd rather be known as a trustworthy person than a controversial person.
Someone who does that really well is you've probably heard of the Harmon brothers, right?
Yeah.
So recently on this show, I had Shane Rickard, the CEO of the Harmon brothers, on here, and we did go into talking a lot about controversy, humor, and the idea of pushing people to the point where they're feeling almost uncomfortable, but then quickly changing to the next thing, in the narrative. And that process of bringing people up this emotional, kind of up and down at very rapid pace is their formula, for creating these viral ads. Of course, you've seen Squatty Potty, probably the purple mattress. And when you said earlier, you're talking about how there's the balance between the creatives and then the media buying. I'd say that I would look to them for inspiration a lot when it comes to like the creative inspiration for storytelling around a product.
100%. Like, so my neighbor is, he spent a lot of time creating and blowing up YouTube channels, and like they have a formula, and like he's like, dude, just pay me a few $1,000s and I'll make you that type.
Does this neighbor have a name, or is this confidential information?
No, I mean his name is Jeremy Acevedo. He's just one of those really talented production guys. He's like, yeah, I know exactly how to make that type of thing on a budget that's both on brand and interesting for your business.
That's super. I will look him up after this, and we'll link him down below. I've got a question here. When you booked your, this, just in my calendar, this podcast conversation we're having right now, you gave me links to pretty much every single social media platform that you're on. Tell me about how you kind of spread your energy or your focus between social media currently when it comes to your personal brand.
Yeah, so I create everything for TikTok. That's number one. I syndicate out from TikTok into LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, X. And if I'm feeling up to it, I'll post write other business content directly onto X. That's it. And the distribution, like I have people who will kind of like take the content, like take it and then post it wherever. I don't want to be doing that work.
And what's your goal with social media when it comes to your personal brand?
Revenue. I mean, that's the goal, right? Like, I'm looking to in more sort of pragmatic terms. It's number one, developing that awareness, reigniting relationships. I mean, our best clients are people who I'd worked with 15, 17 years ago and 8 years ago, 5 years ago, whatever the case is, that keep coming back to us and refer other agencies and other clients to us. So a big part of our content strategy is remind them that I exist, remind them that I'm still in the advertising business, and also to create new relationships. And TikTok is good for that, and social is good for that. Other social channels are good for that as well. We're eating our own dog food, right? It's like, consistency is what works. The fundamentals are what work. So I just got to do it every day.
Now, I've got a few clients of my own who they really shy away from going on TikTok if they're like a more business oriented type of personality, and vice versa. People who are more like looking for the younger generation, or kind of, let's just say they've got a lower ticket kind of item, they shy away from going to LinkedIn thinking that everybody there is all stuffy. But you're on both. Could you kind of tell me how you balance or how you see the landscape between these two and how you're able to put the same content on TikTok and then repurpose to LinkedIn effectively?
Yeah, absolutely. So I feel much more comfortable creating content for TikTok because I feel like I'm not talking to the stuffy people. Because the stuffy people, or the perception of those stuffy people, is that they're as smart as I am about my particular topic or smarter. And I'm going to feel very out of sorts trying to create content for people who I think know everything that I know. So I feel much more comfortable thinking about the TikTok audience and saying, look, someone's going to be in scrolling at night before they go to bed, and they're going to see a video of mine, and maybe it'll catch their attention. The larger sort of insight there is, for many years, worked in corporate media buying and paid attention to corporate media buying publications and conferences. And I recently started going back to those, and I realized it doesn't make sense for me to be talking to those people, because those people are not going to be the ones who are buying from me. I'm not selling to Fortune 500 companies. I'm not talking to people who go to Adweek's Connected TV conference or media buying conference, because who am I going to sell to? Now, granted, there are agencies there, and our clients are agencies, and there could be some overlap there, but it's much more that I'm talking to a different audience, and I have to start communicating to a different audience. Well, anyone who knows exactly what I know probably isn't going to buy from me. People who don't know what I know are the ones who are going to be interested in working with us, because we can add value to them, right? The two big value drivers are create more revenue for the business and create stickier client relationships. Theoretically, anyone can start a media buying business. Theoretically, it's just really hard and expensive, and there's like 5 or 7 different barriers that can all kill you at any different moment.
It's like saying
Totally
theoretically
casual.
anyone could walk the tightrope between, 2 skyscrapers. In theory, yes. And I think that there was a gold rush kind of period in the early 2000s where I think a few influencers, or I think it was like 2010s maybe. I think just to name a few, there was like Ty Lopez was heavily advertising that. A few other people were like, yeah, just start an agency and start billing clients. I think that there's probably like 2% of people who started that are still going now. And that's, well, I'm just kind of making up this number, but because I know so many people were offering these services, and some of them got me on a call, and then I asked them about their past work, and they say, no, you'd be my first client. And immediately I'm like, I'd like you to practice on someone else first. But yeah, so you're right. Like, bringing back full circle to what you said about trust. That's 100% why people stay with you. And that's also, like, for example, for me, I look at the clients that we have, and the majority of them are like 4 or 5 year, kind of, they've been with us for that long. And typically every year they're going to be upgrading their plan with us, and we can do more things and more ways to help them. And they're willing to do that because of the history that we've built of just consistently producing good results, not promising the moon right from the get-go, like some beginners will do when they'll say whatever they need to get the sale. And that brings us back to that conversation we had actually before we started recording. I asked you, I asked the name of your company, and you said it's Brill Media. And I said, you should have called it Brilliant Media. And do you remember how you answered that?
Yeah, I had thought about this. People were telling me like you should create a business called Brilliant Media, and I was like, look, we got to set expectations. I can be good. I may even be great. But Brilliant sets the expectations way too high, and like I need to give myself a little bit of room for to set expectations. And I agree that when things go sour, it's because expectations were incorrectly set or incorrectly communicated. Because you're never going to hear us making guarantees about anything. Like, I'm not going to guarantee, like, people think, you turn on advertising and I'm a millionaire by next Sunday. It's like, that's not how it works. It's a practice. You've got to keep getting better at it. Like, we're good at it, but is the market ready for what you have to offer? Do you have product
Yeah.
market fit? Do people want what you have at the price that you're offering that? And that I can't control. I can give you advice and feedback and intelligence around that, but I can't create it for you unless we do the work together. So yeah, the wrong expectations will kill a relationship before it even starts.
Yeah. Or worse yet, they'll become a disgruntled ex-client who will be making a bunch of noise in the market against you to warn other people, which I've seen happen to other agencies that just couldn't manage their expectations very well. And I think in the early days, I had that happen to me once, and boy, was that a tough lesson to learn. It really was.
People often ask, like, how do you get into the advertising business? And everyone's like, I'm on Reddit a lot. I'm probably spending way too much time on Reddit than I should be. So there's an agency subreddit. So it's people who appear to be relatively inexperienced and talented, but inexperienced, ambitious, but inexperienced. And one person I remember said something to the effect of, well, we all had to start out somewhere. How do you give someone a chance? And the answer is, no one had to take a chance on me. All they had to do was hire me and pay me not to mess up. And I spent a decade learning about the advertising business in corporate. So, I think people really downplay the value of getting that experience. I mean, I'll tell you, look, when I graduated from college, I had a friend who was like, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. So I was like, oh, that sounds exciting. I'll be an entrepreneur too. I told my parents and they're like, but you don't know anything. It's like, all right, I guess I'm going to go back to work or I'm going to get a job. And I think that doesn't apply for everyone. I think there are really smart young people and really ambitious and really talented young people who are just out of college. I think the most pertinent lesson is to know yourself. And I knew that I didn't know anything. And I'm glad I got the right advice to not go out and do silly things when I had no chance of success.
Something comes to mind about that. And one of the things that I've done early on when I didn't have that experience, when I didn't have the portfolio, is I would just offer to do spec work, because I reasoned that if the work was good enough and the client was, or the prospect was qualified, it would be a no-brainer to hire me after I did the spec work. If for some reason they didn't hire me, then I have two factors that are 100% within my control. One of them is learn to prospect better. If my work was good enough, they didn't hire me. Or number two is to do better work, because if they were truly qualified, they would have hired me based on the quality of the work. And when I took that reasoning into my process, then it changed the way I looked at everything, where I only wanted to operate on a basis where things are within my control. And that's when I started landing clients, because it was never the client's fault. It was either the quality of the work, which was me, or it was the quality of my perception in prospecting. And yeah, those are probably the two lessons I learned as a startup that helped me, really get started and dialing in the sales and marketing process for myself.
Coming out of a decade of advertising, I had a few challenges that I knew I tried so hard not to even have to deal with them. I didn't know how to sell, and I didn't want to take the big financial risks, because in advertising, right, you spend $100,000 in advertising. You spend the money first and then you get paid for it like 30, 60, 90 days. And it's like, I don't really have $100,000 that I have the ability to spend, and God forbid something happens and I don't get paid on that. That'd be devastating. I tried everything I could not to be in that business. I tried to be an influencer, which makes no sense. I tried to launch an influencer marketing agency. I tried to do consulting. I feel like there's one more in there. Oh, a social media marketing firm, which I have no competitive advantage in whatsoever, nor the passion, nor the expertise. And only finally, when I focused on my my zone of genius, which is digital ad buying, that the business started to take off, and I could really dial in my efforts because that was my last resort. It should have been my first. It should have been my only, but it was my last resort. Money was, savings were dwindling away, and I was like, all right, I got to make this work. And I think when you're pushed up against a corner and you have to find that will to power through, that's often when good ideas um, present themselves, and with the good idea, you become much more capable of executing on that idea, even though it may be more risky or harder to do or more challenging.
I want to ask you a question about what do you think is working well right now that has an expiry date on it, and when it comes to digital marketing?
We don't deal in those types of things.
Okay. Why don't you give me an overview of what's working best then in your business right now?
We deal in the fundamentals, and the fundamentals always work. Like there are podcasts out there that talk about growth hacks. Like, for example, on X, if you run advertising in a certain way, you can get like millions of impressions for like $1 a day, something like that. That's not valuable. Part of an overall strategy may be tinkering, that's maybe valuable, but on its own, not valuable. What does work, there's kind of like 3 general ideas that are pertinent right now for marketing and advertising. Number 1 is works now, and it worked in the 1950s. You have a strategy. Too many businesses don't have a strategy when they're investing their advertising spend. You're investing the money. It has to pay you a return. If it's not paying you a return, you got to figure out why. And the strategy is what helps you make good decisions with your advertising spend. And to create a strategy for your advertising, you need a couple points. Number 1, you need a vision for where you're going to go in the future. Like, what are you looking for your business to do? Is it top line profit? Is it bottom line? Is it top line sales or bottom line profit? Is it headcount? Is it prestige for the business owner? Is it to get acquired? Is it to create a lifestyle business for the owner? Is it some sort of political power or some other sort of outcome? Is it to simply demonstrate that you have something valuable? Do you have a chip on your shoulder that you need to prove something to someone? Those are all valid reasons to have those are all valid like goals for business people to have. So you know what you're aiming for. And then you need to look at various elements of your history. Number 1, what have you done in the past that marketing and advertising that has worked and that hasn't worked? You're also looking for customer profiles, like how do you know when you're talking to your customer? And the example there is you're a flower shop. Well, you're talking to your customer online when they go to Google and they search for flower shop. And then your ad appears and you can get a customer there. For many businesses, it's not that cut and dry. And then you're looking for the economics of your business. So how much does it cost to acquire a customer? What's the lifetime value of a customer? Those types of, like how many transactions do they do with you? Those types of things. When you have all that information lined up, then you pair that with the channels, the tactics, the elements that currently work in marketing. And when I say currently work, it's big macro things that currently work or don't work, right? Like I've never recommended print in my entire career, partially because I've always been the digital guy, but still, yet again, you'll never, like, no one needs print advertising. A lot of people still buy $60 billion worth of television advertising, and it's debatable in the US whether or not you even need that. So what the channels that are relevant are certainly search and social, connected TV, digital out of home, digital audio, and digital out of home, I said. So, but even more granularly, you need to understand in social where you're going to run ads. And 45% of all digital advertising in 2024 is going to be delivered on Google and Meta. So chances are you're going to run ads on Google and Meta.
Thank you so much for that. I feel like you've just given a master class right here on the podcast for how to develop a strategy around advertising. And I feel like what you just described there could even be formatted into like a flow chart, for how to go from the decision, I want to start an advertising campaign, all the way down to the actual advertising campaign launched. So thank you for that. Thank you. And I think that if people haven't done paid advertising yet, if they haven't, bought media, then I wouldn't disagree with a single thing you said on there. You've obviously been doing it for some time. You've met with various different situations, challenges, market conditions, and this is there's just nothing to change about that. And you're absolutely right when I said, what are you doing now that's has an expiry date? Not this. I'd agree with you on that.
It's not this. I mean, so let's take it a step further. How do you integrate Google into your advertising strategy and Hulu and these other channels? The next key sort of benchmark to consider is that, and this is another mistake I see businesses make, is they think about advertising as Facebook or Google. I'm going to run ads and I'm going to see which does better, Facebook or Google, or banners or Hulu or whatever. That's fundamentally wrong. They work together, they collaborate to build a story for your customer that results in a sale. It's an these are elements, these are instruments of the orchestra that work together to build the symphony. And the symphony is the sales, the orchestra are the channels, the tactics, the creative, the optimizations you make. So for example, if you run ads on Hulu, on connected television, you're not going to be as effective. It's not going to do as well. Your cost per sale or your cost per lead isn't going to be as low as when it comes from Google search. And an inexperienced marketer might say, well, let's turn off Hulu ads. The experienced marketer says, no, we got to keep Hulu ads on, as an example, because that's feeding the top of the funnel. That's bringing more people into your sphere of influence, educating them that you exist. And it's a source of compelling information that then results in a Google search that then further results in a sale. And by the way, it could be the sale comes from Google search advertising or search engine optimization. So what you see when you start to make these channels work well is that they improve all elements. All elements of all channels start to improve each other and work together to build a profitable sales process for the business.
Thank you for sharing that. And you've given so much information here that can be applied. And some people might hear this and immediately go start working on it. But then there's going to be the kind of people who, obviously, since you do this professionally, might be interested in hiring you. Could you, by any chance, give us some markers for what kind of companies qualify to work with you in terms of what industry, how much budget they have? Do they have products already on the market, or are they bringing new products to market and things like that?
Yeah. So our large clients are spending about $500,000 a month for advertising across channels. Our smallest clients are spending $1,500 a month. And of that, $1,000 goes to ads in the platform, and $500 comes to us to manage the services. And we niche down in terms of services and clients. Most of our clients are agencies because it's a reflection of what I know how to do best. I know how to be an intrapreneur. I know how to integrate systems and processes effectively with already thriving businesses to make them even better and more valuable to their clients. When we talk directly to businesses, it's usually a referral. And we work in a lot of different verticals: food, autos, hospitality, real estate, government, movies, consumer packaged goods, gaming, home services, both high-end home services and low-end home services. Because once you know the fundamentals, once you know what works and what doesn't, once you know how to actually activate it on it effectively, and once we have a standard operating procedure that is absolutely killer inside our organization, powered by a very smart senior team of advertising experts, it just works. We don't niche down by industry or vertical. We niche down by services, which is ad buying, to mostly agencies.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm already interested in what you're talking about. So we'll have that conversation afterwards. I've, up until now, like we've done pretty well for ourselves just doing pure organic marketing. And when I say pure organic marketing, it just means putting up posts on Facebook that people engage with, intentionally joining groups where I know high level, where my ideal clients are, building relationships by joining these, and most of my clients come from that space. And I haven't, in the past, I've kind of done advertising in, like starts and stops, and it never really got to that point where it was a smooth running machine and I could just let it keep going long term. So, from the way you describe it, sounds like it actually makes sense. So, like if myself or anybody like me is interested in getting in touch with you, what's the best way to find out more about you and potentially, send you a message and find out if it'll be a good fit?
Yeah, our website is brillmedia.co, B as in boy, RILL media.co. There's a start now button, and you can reach out to us there. We also are developing a course, and the course will help people understand how to build an agency. It's going back to the Tai Lopez thing. I wanted to bring that back because I think that's interesting. It's very hard to run ads, like if you don't have the experience running ads. It's very easy to access. It's very hard to do effectively. I think the magic is going to be outsourcing, which is both a business development like strategy for us, but also it's something I just really enjoy doing, which is working with agencies. So we're actually teaching people how to build an agency, talk to people, make sales, do something that they love to do, but outsource everything else, including ad buying. And if you don't love to do anything, you just like talking to people, then outsource everything and just talk to people and form relationships.
It's so brilliant. We have a common friend named Dean Jackson, who's put a lot of education out there about marketing. And his big shtick right now is, when it has been for a decade at least, is start looking for the who, not the how. If you focus on the how, then you're going to be in employee psychology, employee, mental condition. If you're an entrepreneur, then you got to find the who's the best at it, who's better than you at it, get them on your team, whether it's an agency or an individual, and you'll be able to focus on your what you're uniquely great at compared to everybody else. And that's gonna be your edge. So I 100% back up what you're saying there. And of course, it does help to educate prospects in this. Then they look at, wow, doing all what you're doing, what I'm doing, it's something that I very highly doubt they'll be able to do more effectively. So that's the reason why I can and I think yourself too, can with a high level of conviction, sell the services, charge what you know it's worth, because it's going to do them a lot of good if they make that decision. Well, I've got to wrap this up in just a sec. Do you have any last words of advice for people who are trying to break into that marketing industry? Maybe they've tried, but it's just not, it's not going well for them. Sorry, when I said marketing industry, what I meant to say is they're trying to break into setting up a successful ads campaign. Let's say that, they've tried different things, taken different courses, maybe even hired an agency. What advice do you have for that person?
Well, there's a lot of advice. You got another 2.5 hours.
Well, if you could put that into a pithy proverb. I'm putting you on the spot, I know.
Yeah. There's a lot. I mean, I think number one, you've got to be a tech tinkerer. Like, I'll give you an example. We don't do SEO. For clients, we do SEO for ourselves. So now I'm the client. I tried to figure out SEO for 5 years, and I hired someone, paid him like a few $1,000s for like 2 or 3 hours of work. And he like gave me a 1.5 years worth of work for me to do. now I understand how to do bottom of funnel SEO for my business. I hired someone and they're going to do it for us. That's the value of paying for someone, paying for an expert. Like, you can accelerate 5 years of distraction and not learning something, and probably, if you're putting money at it, tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars of wasted money just by working with an expert. So that's number one, just fast forward. Number two, if you're really focused on doing it yourself and you're doing meta, I can send you a link. We have a 13-minute training on how to make the creative testing framework work, the intricacies of making that work for a business. Or people can email me, just type in Facebook ads in the subject line and I'll send them the link. But it's on our website as well. But the idea fundamentally is you've got to figure out what works and scale it. And you've got to be a tinkerer. You've got to understand enough to be able to judge whether or not other people are doing it effectively. And I urge you to work with experts because it'll save you time and money.
All right, guys, we got to wrap this up. Thank you so much for being on the show. And for everybody else listening, I will see you next week. Thank you so much. That was excellent.
Thanks, Ken. Appreciate it.
No hustle worship here, we're a different breed. Action is what we got if action is what you need. Content capitalists, we're breaking the mold. Cause the old ways fading, new stories to be told. So content capitalists, get to the prize.